Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning to all of our listeners spread out across the cryptosphere. Thank you for joining us with this impromptu episode of Clan and K's Coffee Corner. Uh, we wanted to do an episode Tuesday night because we know Saturday is probably not the best time for everyone to join us in the morning. And we originally thought we wouldn't be able to recover the recording of Redline on Saturday. Uh, I was actually able to do so, but regardless, we said we'd do a space, so we're going to do a space. And of course, since Tuesday is probably a better time for people to tune in and give us a listen, we'll have more people in here capable of asking any questions they may have about Redline's post, his proposal. So awesome. Give it another sec for it to fill up. K Rocks, Redline, if you would like to say hi, introduce yourselves, then go right on ahead.
Hi, how's it going?
That's it. That's all you're going to give, Redline?
That's all I'm gonna give you. I don't really, I kind of want to stay undoxed. I don't know how you introduce yourself and stay undoxed at the same time. There's a bit of a strange way of doing it. So yeah, just hello. That's all I'm gonna give you for the moment, anyway.
Okay. Hey, just not drinking coffee right now.
LOL. Yeah. Fake out on the name. I'm not drinking coffee, even though I did just have a little bit of tea. Um, so, for any of our listeners that have not been able to acquire a link to directly to Redline's proposal, I put it up in the bird's nest for anybody. It is located in that tweet, so you can go ahead and click on that and navigate through the proposal with us as we walk through it. Usually, we start the shows with a little bit of crypto news and then relevant lunk news. We're going to go ahead and skip that tonight because we're here with a purpose. We want to talk to Redline about his prop while we have him here. So, Redline, I wanted to personally just run through quickly through your proposal for our listeners so they can all have a basic understanding from a reader's perspective, a user's perspective. And then while we do that, uh, once we're finished with that, then we'll go ahead and just open up discussions. I'll attempt to come up with relevant questions since I've already had all of mine answered, and also touch on the questions we asked and had answer on Saturday. So, so for anyone who hasn't read the proposal or discussed it enough with anyone to have a decent grasp of it, in my from my perspective and in my opinion, it's rather easy to grasp. Okay, so there's a few basic mechanisms inside of the proposal that allow it to keep capital controls. They're rather effective. We'll walk through those in a moment, and it's just we'll walk through it, and then you can come up with your own opinions as an individual. So this proposal, this idea is an incremental peg. And what that means is that we're not shooting directly for a dollar immediately. We're going to have smaller, more obtainable goals as we gradually work towards a dollar. And then once we meet a dollar, the protocol goes into full effect essentially. It works off the same mechanisms all the way up to a dollar, but some of those mechanisms don't action and have no need to action above peg, until we're at a dollar because we want to maintain that United States dollar uh, exchange rate for one. So the way it does this is a divergence tax. Okay, so once we reach a dollar, and everything is in full effect, it has a tax that executes if someone sells their UST below a dollar, you know, uh, essentially creating a disincentive for someone to sell and then also kind of hurting them while the protocol is able to pocket this tax for other mechanisms we'll go through later. And then above a dollar, it does the same. It has that divergence tax. And the further away it gets from the dollar peg, it'll tax the user the same percentage amount. This allows the user to retrieve what he or she is initially wanted to get, which is 1 USD worth of currency, whatever currency you exchange it for, while the protocol gets to obtain more liquidity from that tax. So it does. So it does that. It's basically simple math. It happens the same regardless of any currency. The trading pair it is, because this proposal does, excuse me, have the idea behind it of it being instituted by exchanges that may have trading pairs outside of the United States dollar. So we could be obtaining different cryptocurrencies along the way that would add to a plethora of different currencies backing the peg. So that's essentially how the incremental repeg works. And then there's a couple other aspects that we'll go into deeper, since that's the basic idea of the peg, such as buybacks and essentially a staking protocol. And then, like I mentioned, this does, for full effectiveness, it does have to be instituted by Redline's recommendation, the top 3 exchanges with the highest volume. Otherwise, if they don't initiate it, the protocol wouldn't work correctly because it's not covering all the different liquidity pools in the market. And it suggests the way we would get exchanges to do this, and Rex has already reached out to many exchanges to request assistance with this, is we would come to them with a form of profit sharing model that we can get into deeper later on as we walk through this with Redline. Redline, I think I about got it. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you summarized it fairly well there. Yeah, that's about it. Basically, it's a tax-settled tax to divergence from PEG. So if, say, PEG is at $1 and you sell at 90 cents, then the difference between PEG and market price is 10 cents. So that's the tax you pay. So then you'd only receive 80 cents. And the protocol would then take 10 cents and have that available for buybacks.
Exactly.
To enforce further. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is something I want people to understand, because it took me, you explaining that to me through voice to really get it. So it is kind of like a double-tiered loss if you are to buy at or above PEG. So if you buy 1 UST for $1 at a $1 PEG, if it drops 90 to 90 cents, so it drops 10 cents, 10% of its value, not only are you going to take that 10-cent loss from it dropping PEG, but you're also going to take a 10% more loss, so a 20-cent loss in whole on every dollar because of the divergence tax.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the aim is to try and get people to trade at PEG, basically, and those that don't trade at PEG or below PEG, they'll be punished for doing so. Like, if you look at Terra before, it was always about remittance, or basically that you would have small sums of money moving over the blockchain, not billions of dollars moving across the blockchain in single transactions, So, and if you look at the documents, that was always the way it was designed. But by leaving most of our tokens move over to the CEXs, we didn't have actually any control over those. So that's why we ended up with the death spiral we did. We actually had no control over our tokens, in essence, or the majority of them.
Exactly. Excuse me. Exactly. Okay.
And the other thing as well I was going to say is, say, if we get to $1 and say the price starts pushing above $1, then, like, the thing is, we don't actually need to go to the divergence tax there. What I'd be actually suggesting at that point is we look at maybe swapping LUNC into USTC, minting USTC at that point. But, like, that would be at the point that it's pushing like $1.10, $1.20. Do you know what I mean? That you'd actually turn back on something similar to the old system again. Never ever minting LUNC because we've too much LUNC, but you would maybe be able to swap LUNC back into USTC and mint it. But that'd be way down the line. we'd be up at $1. It would have to be hitting like $1.10, $1.20, and then we could look at bringing it back down and reducing the long supply by allowing that swap mechanism back again.
Exactly.
So you would have the opportunity, and the long holders would profit from making that
Exactly.
swap. And that's what's really going to burn down the supply. That's what we've been talking about getting to, is re-enabling the swap so that we can burn down supply. And this is kind of how
A
you do it.
one-way swap, as you mentioned on Saturday. So you would never be able to swap your UST for Lunk.
Yeah, I don't think we ever need to mint Lunk again. I think we've such a massive supply of it. I don't think we'll ever
Mm-hmm.
turn on Lunk mint to be able to swap back again. I don't think we need to. I think through the Lunk to USTC swaps, the one-way swaps, like the protocol is actually acquiring Lunk then. So the community could decide to keep that for down the line to use to allow swaps back the other way without minting. Or they could choose to burn it off because one half just wants to burn off all the Lunk, whereas it might make sense to keep it out of circulation but have it for a couple of years down the line when we're at Peg and maybe want to have the swaps fully enabled, but never again minting more Lunk.
Yeah,
If that makes
and
sense.
when you say you wouldn't, well, when I said as well, you won't be able to swap UST for Lunk. I would just like to clarify on that. That means at the protocol level, at the layer one protocol level, you won't be able to burn UST and mint Lunk. That it does not mean that you won't be able to go to a decentralized exchange, which is a layer two application, and utilize their liquidity pools to swap UST to Lunk, because that doesn't mint supply. You're just swapping supply on their hopefully decentralized liquidity pools. Am I correct in that thinking, Redline?
Yeah, you'd be correct there. You could go to Dex and swap if you like, but
Exactly.
there'll be no minting using the AMM of Lunk ever again. I don't think we need to. I think we've such a massive supply already. I don't think we need to.
And I would agree. We got supplies for days. Okay. And also, I didn't mention this before. We're just going to walk through it with any questions myself or K-Rox has, and then we will bring up speakers. Once we've done that for a little bit, and you're free to ask any and all questions related to Redline's UST proposal. So I think that about covers the swap, the divergence tax mechanism itself. Now, you also touched on buybacks. So just to touch on that again, so I can make sure we all, or at least myself, understand it fully. And I am, for everyone listening, I am currently scrolling through the proposal as we're speaking. So I am going. I do want to touch on all items so we don't miss anything. So in this section, you have protocol buybacks, like you mentioned a moment ago, and essentially when this mechanism gets enacted, is that where we're gonna, let's say the thing shot up to $1.20 because people are buku crazy, they're excited, and you want to turn off the tax mechanism and initiate and use the same mechanism essentially, but a different utility. Instead of essentially putting that in a piggy bank, you want to use the funds acquired from that to then buy back UST.
Yeah, so basically, as the price goes below peg, so you'd start to accumulate assets then. So say if we were trading against BUSD and sales started going below peg, we'd start to accumulate BUSD then, because the tax would only ever be on the seller side, not on the buyer side, and that's important as well. So you'd only ever be accumulating the opposing trading pair. You'd never accumulate USDC until you actually do the buyback. So you're always able to buy back with what will be the more desirable asset
Yeah,
at the time.
yeah, and that's actually my mistake. I was asking you a question not related to this specific section, because I was basing it off of titles and not the content of the section. But anyways, yeah. Okay, so
Are you saying? Are you going back to if we were above, if the price was above peg? Is it
Yeah,
above a dollar at
yeah,
a dollar 20?
that's what I was referring to. I had the wrong section pulled up, but go ahead. Yeah. So go
Well,
into
this would be if we were at the dollar and you know it was starting to push above the dollar and a dollar 10
uh-huh.
or something like that. That the demand was. Then we could look at re-enabling the AMM again. That you could have LUNC swapped into USTC. So basically, you'd get $1.25 worth of USTC for $1's worth of LUNC, and that would incentivize people to swap their LUNC into USTC, bringing down the price of USTC back to $1 and reducing the supply of LUNC at the
Okay,
same time.
I
And
fully grasp you now, and that would also help since you're minting more UST. You would help bring it back down to a dollar peg as supply rises.
so what it is an arbitrage. You know, it's an arbitrage
Yeah.
opportunity. So you, as a LUNC holder, will be able to swap your LUNC into USTC. So you'll give $1 worth of LUNC, get $1.25 worth of USTC, which you can sell to the market. You know, so people are going to just sell it down then to the dollar again. At which point the mechanism turns off. But that part of the protocol, we're talking, it could be years down the line before we're starting to push $1.10, $1.20.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? There would have to be that demand there for it for us to even looking at that. That's why I didn't actually include that in this proposal because that's a bit down the line, and that would be assuming that everything so far that my proposal went ahead and everything went successfully up to $1. But yeah, that's what I'd be looking at down the line would be re-enabling the AMM again, but never long minting, only the other way into Terra
Okay.
coins.
Yeah. So let's move on for a moment away from the actual mechanism of how we'll reach repeg. There's a couple of other things in here that you propose. Uh, so, like you mentioned a moment ago, as we see as depegs happen while we work towards a dollar, the protocol itself is going to start acquiring funds, and those are going to be essentially distributed, you propose, into three different locations. And I'll work through those right now. The first one is a unidirectional limited LUNC to UST swap pool, 47.5%. So 47.5%, I assume, of all taxes will go to that pool. And then another 47.5% is going to a UST staking and saving vault, and that touches on the staking mechanism you would like to implement, which would add further utility to UST at the core protocol level, unlike what we've seen in the past that was by third parties. And then you also want 2.5% to the Oracle and the community pools. The last one's a little simple. We understand what the Oracle and the community pools are. For anyone that potentially doesn't know what the Oracle or community pools are, the Oracle pool is what funds validator rewards. The community pool is what funds any spend proposal the community wishes to push forward with. So unidirectional limited LUNC USTC swap pool.
Yeah, so that's what basically we'd use before we get to
Okay.
$1. So you would be able as a LUNC holder. So when we set the incremental pegs all the way up, when the price goes above the incremental peg, you will be able to swap your LUNC in against the protocol USTC for a profit, sell to market and bring the price back down to the peg again. That will be limited to only what's taken by the protocol. So when the funds in that liquidity pool run out, that pool is shut, and you won't be able to make that swap. It's not a swap with minting; it's more of an exchange per se.
Yeah, because you're then giving the protocol your LUNC. It's not minting UST. It's a swap. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a quick swap for all the world. It's not like minting. It's not like the swaps that will be at the AMM level for all the world. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, and then you also propose a UST staking and saving vault. And would you just like to walk us through that real quick?
Yeah, so basically, because we do acquire USDC from that from the buybacks as well, I thought a way of getting more USDC out of circulation and actually bringing a bit of utility to it would actually be to give some of that to USDC holders who locked up their USDC in savings. So kind of it'll kind of incentivize people to buy USDC and to lock it up. And at the same time, that'll help bring up the price as well because it's taking more USDC out of circulation. Especially rather than burning all this money that we're acquiring through the tax, we're using it, effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're creating essentially a self-sustaining, for lack of a better term that escapes me right now, ecosystem, where the protocol funds the staking in the savings vault, and the staking in the savings vault, the opportunity to earn a yield, gives people a reason to hold and purchase UST. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even if, say, for instance, you got to sell and the price is depegged, so you decide, I won't sell now. Well, you can lock up your USDC then and get paid while it's locked up until the price is high enough that you want to sell again. Do you know what I mean? It incentivizes people to hold on to their USDC. And it also helps, like, there's some people that bought in at $1 and they're not going to sell for a long way yet. So it actually locks up all, we can see their tokens will be locked up. Do you know what I mean? Especially try to get as much USDC out of circulation and incentivize people to do that.
Because the lower the circulating supply, the easier it'll be to repeg it, because the liquidity to the supply ratio will be, I don't know if you would call that higher or lower. I guess it would be higher, yeah. Instead of 10 to 1, it's 50 to 1, 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1. And so...
Yeah, and it's not staking per se. It is realistically a savings vault. It's savings because you're not going to get a vote at this. You're just getting a percentage of the savings. Essentially, even though your money isn't being lent out, you're just getting paid to.
And instead of like a kind of like what Lunk's staking protocol, it's more of a liquid, because you have the opportunity to unstake at any time. Though you do have a 21-day wait period. It's still, you still have that option to unstake at any time. You propose that this is more, as you said, more of a lockup period, 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, with the year over year yield being a higher percentage for the longer amount of time you decide to lock up and believe in the protocol.
Yeah, I just thought it would be a way of incentivizing people to lock up longer, as if you paid them a lot more than people that were locking up for a shorter period of time. So, of course. That's it's basically to incentivize people to lock up longer. That's purely the point of it, basically.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And like you said, that's just an incentive, especially at the beginning, because if you choose to lock up for a year, and watch the lockup percentage of supply shoot past Lunks can't break 15% staked, watch it shoot to like 50%, and that would just help our repeg efforts get there so much quicker. I know, personally, not financial advice, I'd lock up mine. I mean, why not? It's not worth anything now, and whatever helps the efforts. So implementation.
Hey, Clan. Just a quick question. Do you think that it would be possible to invite some people up here and there as we're going through this to ask questions? Because they might get lost at the end. We've had an individual that's had requested for a little while now.
Yeah, if you have a question about something that we've already gone over, it doesn't matter, actually. There's no rules to questions. But yeah, I'll invite you up to speak real quick. And you can go ahead and ask your question, sir, whenever you connect. We might have lost him. It has been a while. Monger, are you there? Munger? Going once? Okay, we'll wait to see if he comes back. Nope, there he is.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, brother.
Hey, just real quick, just want to give a shout out to Redline Drifter. I've just been following your just creation of this vision that you have for the UST repeg, and just kudos to you. I support it 100%. Thank you, Clan, for holding this AMA. So one thing that I was listening to is that once the peg price drops below the peg, are we shutting it off to where you can't swap meaning that you're not going to be minting any more lunk, like shutting it off completely?
When at the start, is it, or when you're talking about?
Yeah, so at the start of it, whenever the peg does
Oh, yes.
drop below the peg, um, are we going to stop that swap mechanism from happening to where you don't
Oh, yeah.
mint any lunk?
Well, there was never going to be. There's never minting of lunk. There's never. So what it's doing is, you as the user are able to swap your lunk into the USDC that the protocol holds. So do you know the way we'd be buying back USDC, or the protocol would say? Well, as that builds up and the price builds above peg, then you'll be basically able to swap with the protocol your lunk for a profit. Do you know, so say USDC was $1.10, and the protocol would give you $1.10's worth of lunk or $1.10's worth of USDC for $1 worth of lunk. So you'll be in profit basically. It's costing the protocol for you to do this, but there's no minting involved. It then acquires the lunk, so the protocol then has your lunk. But yes, it would, when the price dipped below peg, it would shut again. But there's no minting
And
involved basically.
also, if you were asking along a different lines, Monger, when the market swap mechanism at the protocol level is enabled, it's only going to be one way. So you'll only ever be able to swap your lunk for UST. You'll never be able to swap UST for lunk at the protocol level. So there, as Redline just said, there nowhere in his plan and structure is there any way that more lunk can be minted at the protocol level unless something else is decided along the road, which I wouldn't understand. But did that answer your question, buddy?
Yeah, it does. And I don't want to mistaken it with I don't want any lunk to be minted. What I'm trying to say is that you may want to think about having it a two-way mechanism because that's one way that you fill up the Oracle rewards pool is when Lunk is minted, and that was part of the whole UST Luna thing, how that Oracle rewards pool was filled up. So I don't know if it's a good idea to maybe put some kind of limits on how much gets like minted into the rewards pool so that at least we are gaining value in that pool whenever the peg does drop, below the peg
If
price.
if I'm
Um,
not if I'm not
yeah, go
mistaken,
ahead.
is that not the exact function that caused the death spiral to begin with? Because people were swapping their UST to lunk, and it caused UST to depeg and dive further down, and then more people were swapping, and that's why lunk got minted into the trillions.
Yeah, so it's a good and bad thing, right? Because it caused a depeg, but then it gave us the gift of this huge rewards pool also. So I don't know if we can maybe harness that and kind of put some limits on possibly still letting it be a two-way swap, but limiting it somehow. I don't know. I'm
I
just trying to think
I
how do
definitely
we keep how do
I
we keep
definitely
that
see what you're
going?
saying, and I can see where the original thinking was. How that can be used to fund the Oracle and the community pools. Um, Me personally, just due to like community sentiment and like the narrative behind it all, um, I personally don't think minting lunk at any point in time would be a thing that the community could stomach. Uh, and though we don't see it right now, hopefully, as we continue to build out the L1, we see more on-chain volume, and we could maybe tune the transaction fees a little bit and better fund those pools since our transaction fees are insanely low right now. As I've said before, you could 10x the transaction fee, and you'd be making 10 times the amount of uh, income. And our transaction fees are so low that you can't argue about a 1 cent transaction fee when you're sending $20, $40. So even if you 10x it, but that's more my opinion. Redline, anything you have to say or add, sir?
I mean, even in terms of what we could do is for the limited swap pool where people are swapping their Lunk to USDC for a profit, is you just give them a little bit less profit and you can put some of that into the Oracle pool. I really don't think we need to mint any more Lunk. I think there's so much supply out there that it's readily if we just incentivize swapping it into the Terra tokens, I think that's the way to go. Um, I genuinely don't think we need minting. And the other thing then is, as we're acquiring Lunk through those unidirectional swaps, down the line we will be able to have swaps without minting any Lunk because the protocol will have acquired Lunk, provided the community doesn't burn it all away. But if the protocol still has it, you'll be able to offer those kind of swaps without minting any more Lunk.
Yeah, because the protocol would have obtained Lunk itself, and it's just a swap. It's not a mint. Yeah.
Yeah, that's community owned assets then. Do you know what I mean? So you could have something like that down the line, and you could just direct a portion of that or have a percentage of fees on that that's directed towards the Oracle pool. I don't think we need to re-enable minting to fill up the Oracle pool. I think we actually need to just avoid minting of Lunk at the moment.
Okay. Did that get your question answered, Monger?
Yeah, it did. And so one last thing is on, let's say people want to stake their USTC or put it into like a protocol that was like maybe Anchor protocol or maybe a Cavern protocol that's out right now. Think about this. If it's an incremental peg, and if we start off at, let's say 2 cents right now, and that peg keeps going up and up and up, and you are staking your USTC, just imagine the rewards that you're going to get once that price keeps going up and up. So it's super bullish, and it's something that I'm looking forward
I
to.
like to hear it. Okay. If that's all you got, Munger, then I'm going to go ahead and bring Fafi up because he was the next one to request to speak. Oops.
After Fafi, we should do another section. That's just my suggestion.
Go ahead and speak when you're connected, Fafi. Munger, I'm going to drop you down.
You hear me?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's go, Fabi.
Yeah, hey guys. Hey, Red. First of all, just wanted to congratulate you, man, or whatever, to thank you for all the work and efforts that you've put into this. I've seen how much you've been working hard for this, so it's cool to see the prop come out. That's pretty cool. It's just like question, not really question on me. It's more like information in terms of how you envision, like how you envision the process. What do you think? Like, it's more like if there is no good or bad or whatever. It's more like to get your vision in terms of how long you think it would take, or what you have in mind when you put this. Meaning that you think like there's like 1 year, 2 years, you would go for like a 10-cent spec first, etc. More like this kind of practicalities, I guess, according to you.
Well, I think the best thing to do is actually to start off around market price and kind of try work our way up from there. It's hard to say how long it's going to take. I reckon it will probably take us a few years. Now, there's one thing I was actually looking at the news today, and there was I don't know if you saw the new bills that they're about to bring in about stable coins and how basically any stable coin that's not already in existence, it's going to be banned, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at it, all the other stables that are out there, they're all only dollar based. There's maybe one EU coin and maybe one British coin, I think, or a sterling coin. So when this law comes in, we're going to be the only blockchain in the world with all these stable coins. Like, we'll be the only one able to have digital forex. And like, I think we're going to get on board. People are going to bank. They're going to have to invest in us if they want to trade these tokens because we'll be the only ones that have them. I just don't know how quick that will come. But after reading that today, it kind of made me think I was even more bullish on them after that.
All right, yeah. So basically, depends. I mean, if there is some hype or depends on the event, it could even go faster. Or if people put some more funds or whatever, it could like something which could actually take less time, but we think it would. And in terms of like needs like for do you, like in terms of devs, etc. Is something you would be looking at with the L1 team? Would you be looking at another team? How would you go around it, or what would you be looking at?
Well, I spoke to LBA on the current L1 team, and he said his guys would be up to doing it. And I also spoke to Bill about it, and they seemed interested in doing it. So, I'm kind of open to working with anybody. I think that's the thing about being decentralized. I think it should be open for anyone to work on it.
True.
So I'm open to anyone to anyone that wants to work on this, should be able to if they want.
All right, makes sense, makes sense. And all right, cool. That's fine. And last thing is, so yeah, as you mentioned, we have like many like the forex and the mini currencies, etc. What kind of place do you give like for the other currencies, the euros, GBP, whatever? Is that something you would focus first, or you would be looking first at USTC, meaning USD, or you would consider doing like many at the same time, or did you even like
Oh yeah, I was kind of going to see how this was going with USDC, and if we were like starting to build up sufficient enough capital in it, then we start looking at bringing on the other terra currencies as well. It'll kind of depend on how we were progressing at the time, but if we were progressing well, I definitely be looking at starting with maybe BBTC or EUTC or bringing them on as well. For me, with those bills coming on, I really think we have a massive opportunity here, because we'll be the only place to have all these tokens, and the only place that will be able to ever create these tokens into the future. Um, I don't know. I was after reading that today. I was kind of really thinking we might have a future here.
yeah, true.
I actually hadn't thought about it from that perspective after reading the news of, our overlords trying to push more and more onto the crypto market. And that's an interesting perspective because we are the only chain with so many different fiat derivatives already built and tokenized on chain. Uh, so if that were to be enacted, you were exactly right. We'd be the only ones with it for at least the next. I know. How long did they say? They said 2 years.
Yeah,
I can't remember exactly
two
now.
years.
Yeah. So, which actually leads me into my next question, Redline. And since you kind of sort of touched on it, and Fafi, you kind of brought it up. So, would this be enacted across all the different stables at one time, or would we focus on UST and then maybe bring in, the euro, and then maybe the Japanese, JBY?
So at the start, it'll only be uh, sorry. At the start, we won't be bringing on anything else because there's actually a problem with the Oracle, as far as I know. And I don't know, did you see with MYTC earlier on the year? Like, there's an exploit there, so that needs to be sorted and addressed before we allow inter-terra swaps, I
Okay.
think. Um, so I'd be kind of saying we should stick with USDC, bring it up, but we shouldn't allow any inter-terra swaps until that Oracle
Okay.
is fixed. They wouldn't be. I wouldn't be for it at all. If that's done and we're starting to build flattering the system, then yeah, we can look at bringing those on as well. But for the moment, there is an exploit there. I think it's happened us twice
Yes.
already, and it mints USDC in the process. So no, that would be something that would be looked at, but we'd be focusing on USDC for
Okay.
the beginning.
So from what I gather from that is focus on UST. The other protocols and fiat derivatives may have some security issues or functional issues built into their code and structure, and we should look at each one, individually to make sure they're fine before, re-implementing those into the market
Yeah,
later on. Okay.
yeah, and maybe start putting them on one by one. Do you know what I mean? Rather than having USDC and then loading on another 20 stable coins all at once, we can start introducing them one by one and making sure
No,
everything goes
I
smoothly.
agree. And there's different ways you could look at that. Either you can, you could host votes for the different tokens, or you could, just look at, I guess, off chain and on chain liquidity and volume, and say the UST is the most has the highest volume, and then maybe the euro second, and just kind of knock them off from that going down. Which actually kind of creates like a bullish narrative long into the future, because you'd constantly be having these different upgrades turning on different stable derivatives. So that's interesting. Okay. You got anything else for us, Fafi?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, just one last point, and then I'm gonna drop and let someone up. It's just maybe to repeat it again, or I think maybe it can be useful. So for some people, is like, uh, what do we do with these stables, or how you envision the usage or utilization, or do you think it's gonna bring value in terms of what we're gonna do with them and all. So that's the last point on my end, and yeah, I'm just gonna drop and thanks again, and wish you good luck and all for this thing, and I hope it goes well.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Fafi. Thanks for joining us, man. It's been a while since we talked. It was a pleasure having you up
Yeah,
here.
Sam. Thanks, guys.
All right. Okay, go ahead, Redline, if you got anything to say on that.
So for me, what I think we should actually be moving into down the line is payment services, and like start moving into crypto fiat card payments. That'll be down the line. And basically what I do is, like, if you look at merchant services, they make anywhere between 1% and 3% on every card transaction. And so rather than them taking that money, we should maybe put that money back into the community. So say down the line when we're pegged and we've built up a bit of collateral in the system, you could have it like, why would you pay $1 when you could pay 99 USTC? By giving that 1% back to the community, it means that you're actually incentivized to spend your USDC. It's cheaper than spending the dollar. But that'll be way down the line. But that's kind of what I'm envisioning, is that we'll move into kind of merchant services and payment services and foreign exchange. That's kind of what I see us
Yeah.
doing. When we 23 stable currencies, I mean, you should be able to exchange your currencies for a fraction of what the normal exchange rate would be, and then be able to spend it. Like, the thing is, you need to be able to spend the money. There's no point in having money and they constantly
Well,
sitting here. I think we actually need to like be focusing on our future being moving into payment services. And like, if we partner with Binance, I mean, they already have a debit card. Like like they offer one at the moment, and if you keep BNB, they actually give you cash back on your crypto payments. And that, like, you can already now spend your lunk, they'll convert it. You can buy coffee with your lunk now if you want. And I think that's what we should be looking at moving into as well, is payment services. But that'll be down the line. We need to fix the problems with our system
yeah,
first.
and to kind of expand on that, Fafi, with my own little answer to your question, it would be really good for people to remember and realize that Luna Classic is the governance token, the governance coin for the chain. That it's meant to obtain rights and have an opinion and a say in what happens at the core protocol level. That is the purpose of Luna Classic. From what I could gather and looking at governance history for spend proposals, UST is the money of the chain. That is what you used to interact with layer twos. You spent your UST because you're buying a product. You don't have to. It doesn't need to interact with the Oracle to have constant price updates. It doesn't, it's worth $1 United States. And
Exactly. People forget. I was just sorry to interrupt you there. I think people forget that Terra coins, like our Terra tokens, they are the money, and Luna is
ex-
governance. Like, so you can do all our Terra tokens as money. Exactly as Sam was saying.
exactly. Like, you're not, I know when we're currently seeing projects build and what have you, and when we have a spend prop, what are we using? We're using Lunk. I've bought a few NFTs. I've used Lunk. I didn't use UST. When we do spend proposals, they're pulling Lunk out of the community pool, not UST. If you take it upon yourself to go back and look at the different spend proposals that have been, pushed through governance over the last 5 years or however long this chain's been around, they utilized UST I'd say 25 out of 26 times every time they had a spend proposal, because UST is the money, LUNC is what obtains you rights inside of the ecosystem. So even, moving on to layer 2 protocols down the line, once we build a healthy, active ecosystem of users and service providers or product providers, we should really be pushing them to use UST, because LUNC is what's capable of accruing value over time, because LUNC is what signals the health and growth of the network, in that type of idea, and UST is what we utilize to transact on chain. So there's really just one more thing I want to go through. I think we pretty much have covered everything else, just through conversation. So there's a few negatives, and once we're done going through this, I'll open the floor up to anyone and everyone that wants to ask a question or has something they would like to say. So I'm just going to read through these negatives real quick, and none of them really strike me as negatives. They're just kind of like the status quo. This is where we are, and these types of things weigh heavily on, for this to work or not. So it relies heavily on sexes, centralized exchanges, to agreeing on this. And without it, the protocol would not be effective, and I would not recommend implementing it. I, being Redline Drifter, I also, though, wouldn't. Will most likely have a dramatic reduction in trading volumes below set peg level, maybe. The majority of trading, and we actually went over that on Saturday, how it could potentially create a FOMO scenario. The majority of trading will most likely resume above or at the peg, but this is not guaranteed. So that's not really a negative. That's just a reality. As you touched on, this function needs to be implemented across all markets for it to work. Otherwise, if we don't control the taxes on the currency, then we wouldn't be capable of generating enough of the proper volume for it to actually work. Second negative effect, we will have to be a soft peg to begin. Obviously, due to the lack of initial capital to defend the peg, there is going to be numerous depeg events until the divergence fee builds collateral in the system. So that's not only working towards a dollar, but once we get there, we can expect people to sell off in mass along the way, creating the protocol to lose its 5-cent peg or its 6-cent peg, its 25-cent peg. But then the protocol's capital control functions should action and execute, allowing the protocol to get back to its current peg. If there isn't sufficient liquidity at peg levels, or the price has already depegged and you need to decide to sell, you could be taxed quite aggressively by the protocol, depending on how far from peg the price has deviated. And once again, that's just another reality of the way the protocol would work. It's built directly into the protocol to tax you heavily. That's the point of it. Not only to obtain funds for the core protocol to create a backed coin, but also to act as a deterrent from people selling below peg, creating a death spiral. Yeah. So I just wanted to touch on those. Anything you have to say on those, K-Rocks or Redline?
Not really, but just there are risks to this as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are some negative points. Like, if you buy below peg and you try to sell immediately, you're going to sell immediately at a loss. So, like, people need to understand how the system is going to work. That the aim is that you should be trading at peg. And once you trade at peg, you're not penalized. But if you trade off peg, you will be penalized for doing so.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's our money. If we all agree that that's what, like, basically, if we call the peg a recommended retail price that the community agrees on, and we agree that our money is of a certain value, and anybody that sells that money below a certain value is going to get punished for doing so. And that punishment will be taxes, which will go back to the community.
Yes. I actually had something to touch on that with, but it escapes me now. So nope, it's not coming to me. So we'll go to Hayden. Hayden, whatever your question is, good sir, go ahead and ask once you're connected. You're live with us, Hayden, and you're also on.
Real quick, I just had a quick question. So, with this protocol that we're involving, what is it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's step 2 or 3 that we'd actually start burning lunk, or is that not part of it? It would just be burning USTC to essentially re-stabilize it, or how would that work?
So at phase 3, this is where you'll be able to have the unidirectional swaps from LUNC into USTC. That LUNC will be acquired by the protocol, so that LUNC becomes under community control, and it's up to the community then what they want to do with that into the future. Whether they want to keep that for down the line when we reach $1 to be able to swap without minting LUNC, or whether they want to burn that off immediately. That will be up to them. From my point of view, though, if you take it out of circulating supply, it's going to have the same effect on the price as burning it. What really affects the price is going to be the buybacks, actually buying it. And that's what affects the price with the Binance burns. When they buy, it's not really when they burn that affects the price. And I think that's a
So
misconception.
essentially, we're going to be at step 3. We'd be buying back a lunk and USTC. Is that what you're saying?
Well, so when people will be swapping their LUNC into USTC, that comes under the protocol would acquire that then.
Okay.
So you'll be taking it out of circulation. So say, for instance, you could swap your LUNC into USTC for a profit. So you'd get USTC. The protocol would take your LUNC, but it's no longer in circulation. The protocol has it.
So we'd be reducing the circulating supply without burning the tokens, without destroying the tokens by default, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Which is just as good, if not, does the exact same. It just gives us leeway if we need the tokens later.
Yeah, like there's some community there, and I see them messaging me even in DMs, and they're like, "We want to burn off the supply," and I'm like, "But if it's out of circulation, burning it off is going to have no real effect on
Also,
the price."
like, let's say, the token, there could be, a proposal that needs extra funding. We can, as a community, decide to use, there's 5 billion tokens we can just use right now. I mean, instead of having to, derive from the community pool. I mean, there is a downside to releasing a shit ton of tokens onto the supply, but you have that option versus destroying those tokens.
Yeah, basically every asset that the protocol acquires will all be at an L1 level. So nobody will be able to touch it
Have we,
like no individual.
another thing I wanted to touch on. So with this eventual repeg of USCC, assuming we get that far, would we be acquiring other assets besides Luna Classic and USTC derivatives like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and etc.?
So if we had trading pairs against USTC, whatever trading pair we open against them, that's an asset we'd acquire. So if we're selective enough, so if we open a USTC BTC trading pair, then we acquire BTC.
Okay. I think
so
we
if, say, for
should
instance,
definitely, one of the definite downfalls of the previous administration that had that peg when we had the Do-Kwon era was we were only acquiring essentially Bitcoin and I think in USTC and Luna Classic. I think it'd be smart to have multiple different asset classes of large quantity.
So at the beginning, because our only trading pairs are stable coins, the actual only assets we'll be backing USDC with is going to be other stable coins like BUSD, USDT,
right,
they're
which I
assets
think
that are
are good. I'm saying we should definitely look in, because it's first step's just get this thing repegged. The second step, is when we can actually start to focus on other things. But I mean, getting it repegged is going to be a bitch and a half.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but like I said there today, I mean, reading the news, like we have a huge opportunity here that we are going to be the only blockchain
We're
in the
the
world.
only blockchain that has more than just a USTC stablecoin, correct? Everyone else just has the one.
Yeah, we've 23 different stables, like we've quite a range of them. So that gives us the ability to create what Fafi was going to try to create, which was a digital forex,
Yeah,
which I think is amazing.
yeah, you're 100% right. I think do you think we're gonna have any trouble gaining enough capital to sustain a peg?
Do you mean over time, or
Yeah,
you see the thing is
let's say because I think getting it pegged is one part of the equation, but also keeping it pegged. Because what's to stop? Are we going to have enough revenue once this is repegged at any degree or any increment? Let's say we get to 2 tokens. What's to stop a whale from dumping a shit ton of coins and we're, back down to point triple zeros?
That can't happen. The absolute maximum a DPEG can happen is a 50% DPEG. If you look at mathematically how it works. So at a 50% DPEG, you would be taxed 100%. Like it goes from 0 to 100%. So if a whale, say for instance TFL, they got all their USDC and they dumped it onto the market, most of those assets would end up being acquired by the protocol. So they just come back under community ownership.
Okay.
Do you understand? We would actually end up acquiring most of those assets.
Okay. I think that's kind of it for me. Thank you, Redline.
Alrighty then. Well, thank you for all those questions, Hayden. I appreciate them. I'm sure our listeners appreciate them. Anyone else? Anyone else have any questions? You feel free to raise your hand. I'm sure Redline or myself would love to answer them for you. If I can. I know you're all here to listen to Redline, not me. It's fine. So that's actually, and I remembered what I wanted to say a moment ago, and it touched kind of on what you were saying at the time, Redline, is that, oops, Hayden, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to remove you from the space. I meant to remove you as speaker. My bad. LOL. But in our last space, people brought up the idea of like, why do this? And in reply, I feel like Redline and I are both kind of in the same position on it. It's more like, why not? UST is already worth nothing comparative or relative to what it's supposed to be worth. And besides the risk of it failing, there is no risk. Besides the risk of it just doesn't work. If we were to generate the volume, it would work, but we just can't. Not enough people are interested. It just doesn't work. I mean, besides that alone risk, there really isn't any risk beyond that, and
yeah, like the harder we get hit, like the harder somebody dumps into this protocol, the more money that's acquired by the community. Do you know what I mean? So it's not to say it's not risk free. Like it could affect trading volume quite a lot. So you have to look at that aspect of it as well. But I mean, at the same time, are we not all here at the end of the day because we bought into the repeg of USDC and decentralized money, and this is what we want to do with it? Like we have quite a lot of problems that we need to address. Like if you look at before, we had LFG to do manual buybacks. Do you know what I mean? We've nothing like that now. We've no collateral. So this is trying to address those problems we have and help us build back. Do you know? I mean, other than that, why are we here? Really? I think the reason most of us are here is because we believe in decentralized money and we think this is going to work, or something similar to this. Maybe somebody else has another idea that's better, but
yeah. I mean, I would say a good portion of the educated community, yes, they bought into decentralized money. I would say a lot of people brought into burn and YOLO, just potentially not hating, but that's the crypto market.
We're all kind of burn through utility, and we're going to get this burn through utility. But
exactly.
What is that utility? I mean, if you look at what Terra was before, it was, that swap mechanism was a good part of the utility and the arbitrage opportunity in it. And if we build this right, we've kind of the ability to create some of that as well with the limited swaps. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're kind of reigniting some of the old system with this. And like this divergence tax isn't anything new. I mean, if you go through the documents there, we have a Tobin tax on our on-chain already that goes from 0 to 100 and taxes the difference in price between tokens, taxes the spread. So we have this already. It just wasn't implemented across all the markets, and that's why we had the big DPEG event that we had. So I think we should address that and actually have our capital controls over our and build something that works.
Exactly. And hopefully the centralized exchanges take the bait and they, you know, allow themselves to be essentially handed money above their normal fee rate for transacting on their exchange. I don't see why they wouldn't. Um, if anyone has an idea why an exchange would say no to being handed more money, I would love to hear it. I really would. Still have yet to hear any arguments against your proposal, Redline. Um, so
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is the exchanges, but I think I tried to address that with the profit share with them. And I mean, if you look at some of the figures there, even with a 90% drop in trading, they're still quite lucrative, and you could still offer the exchanges multiples of what they'd normally make at trading, So it's not like we're going to them like before, where we were just begging them to burn their own money, which is what we're doing now. Like, we're actually offering them a business opportunity here and the chance to make more money and grow with us. So we're going to them with something different now. It's not the same as before. We're actually giving them with a proper proposal, a business proposal.
Exactly. And as I know and mentioned earlier, Rex has already reached out to many of those top exchanges. I don't know what it is about him, but he's really, really good at developing contacts.
Yeah, he know everybody all right, doesn't he?
He does. I don't get it, but he's good at it, and I mean he's basically got everyone on speed dial now. Um, yeah, I don't personally see a reason why the exchanges would say no, and like that's the bare minimum of this proposal as well. If someone's like, no, don't try it, the exchanges could say no. Well, why the hell wouldn't we ask to begin with? I mean, the bare minimum that anyone can do for this proposal is, as Rex is doing, contacting them and be like coming at them with the proposal itself. Um, and saying, "Hey, what do you guys think about this?" So I haven't heard anything from him yet about a response from exchanges. I don't know if you have or if he is keeping that close to the chest right now. But it will be really good to hear what he has to say once that's made public. Um, yeah. So go on, Redline. I saw you unmute yourself.
I was going to say, yeah, like I haven't heard any feedback from them yet, but all the major changes have been informed. But I'd assume that there wouldn't be any discussions with them until a signalling vote has been passed by the Lung community. Like, I'll put one up at the weekend after I finished all the AMAs. But the exchanges have been notified, so they have an idea what's coming. But we haven't had any discussions or interviews or anything, meetings with them yet. And I
Okay.
presume that will come after the signalling vote.
I apologize for the barking dog in the background. And that actually makes sense from the exchange's side. You wouldn't want to give your hand away about what it is you're wanting to do ahead of time. So I completely understand them wanting to see the outcome of a signaling proposal before making anything public. Jesus, hold on one second.
Redline, I don't know if you can see that we have some questions that are in the comment section. If you wanted to take a look at those and see if you could potentially answer any of them.
What I missed? Did I miss anything good? No one else has any questions?
I had just said that there was some questions that are in the comment section.
Ooh, okay. Let's see what they got. Um, okay, Redline. We might have answered some of these, but I'm just going to read them out. One question comes from Appalachian Meme Man. We love memes around here, so be sure to share them. How is the peg set on our way up? Will it automatically go up, I'm assuming, when the price is X% above current peg? Can this process be sped up or slowed down during spike periods? And how do holders determine the current peg? Redline? Himself as speaker. Okay. Did you get that, Redline, or did you disconnect?
Can you think of us the end of it there, just as it was made speaker? So if you just repeat the end of it there, that'd be.
Yeah. Sure thing, buddy. Okay, so can this process be sped up or slowed down during spike periods? And how do holders determine the current peg?
Okay, so what I was going to do with it was, so we tried to build up collateral in it initially with DPEG events, but if, say, for instance, the price was moving up, say, moved up to 2 cents or 3 cents, or sorry, 3 cents or 4 cents, and stayed there, but we hadn't enough collateral to buy ourselves back up there. Well, what I was thinking is if the price stayed above, say, stayed at 4.5 cents for 48 hours, then the peg mechanism would automatically move up to 4 cents, and say kind of move at every cent level all the way up. And I was thinking that so it would have to stay above a certain cent level for 48 hours, and then it would automatically move up to that level.
Exactly. Okay. And that breeds a question for me. What if there is exponential growth? Okay, let's say we started the peg at 0.025 to make it easy for ourselves because it's been there forever. It goes to 3 and then it shoots to 8 and it stays above 8 but doesn't break 9 for 48 hours. Do we jump to 8 or do we jump to
No,
3 or 4?
eight then. And like the thing about that is if it was able to maintain it at one point, it can maintain it afterwards. And the thing is, if you say look at the figures that I had for around 2 cent and 2.5 cent peg levels, like the money we'd be bringing in at 8 cent is 4 times what we'd be bringing in at 2 cent. Do you know? So the figures get a lot better up there. The higher the peg level is, the more money we're going to accumulate through that protocol in DPEG events.
Okay, so if it does reach that and sustains it for the 48-hour mark, then it will jump to that 8 cent peg.
Exactly. And once it goes up, it's never going to come down. The peg will hold, it'll be like a ratchet system. It'll only ever go up and it'll lock there. It can never go down, only up as far as the dollar.
Okay, and users that decide to either change out their UST will just be, taxed indefinitely up and until the point that it obtains the whatever the set peg is. Okay. Once again, Redline, I'm honestly amazed that there's so few and little questions. And I'm just going to, attribute that again to you writing a very clear and concise proposal for the repeg. It made sense for me, and I'm thinking it makes a lot of sense for everyone else, especially as users come up. They seem to have a good grasp of what it is we're discussing here. Because it really is just a simple idea, in my opinion, that could work. It doesn't need to be intricate and crazy with different side chains and crazy different token derivatives and Lord knows what else. And touching back on what you said earlier, it's just like, we're the only chain that has all these fiat derivatives. And that's truly what made the chain special originally. It was the capability for users to hold digital assets in their native currency that they are then capable of swapping with other native currencies, essentially. And that has its own utility alone once we start opening up the other pegs, because say you're going from one location to another. Well, no, that would actually, because you would have to have an exchange. Never mind, scratch that. But yeah, I like the idea. Really, no questions, anyone. You guys are killing me. You guys are killing me. We need an interactive audience. You guys are welcome to come up here and talk, ask any questions, make any statements. If not,
Does
then we'll
anyone
get.
not, or does anyone have a problem with any of the aspects? I'd actually rather hear somebody with a problem with it to give me something to work with.
Exactly. Me too. Like I said multiple times, I would really love to hear someone, express concerns or different holes they've poked into it, so we can approach it from that angle and see if we can get something to solve it. All right, Matt's Market, you're coming up whenever you're ready, sir. You are muted if you're not aware.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing good, brother. How are you?
Doing well. Redline, I got a question for you, man. It may have been you may have touched on it. I'm kind of running behind here in the space, but what feat have you shown this prop to? Have you had any discussions with any centralized exchanges so far? And what kind of
So
feedback,
Rex
if
reached
so?
out. So Rex did reach out to the exchanges, and they do have a copy of the proposal. And I think one of them has reached out to GGF to set up a meeting, but I don't think there'll be any discussions until after our meetings will happen until after there's a signal of vote and that's passed by the community. I'll try have one up at the weekend after the AMAs, but there hasn't really been any feedback, and I imagine there won't be until after that. There's been no no's yet, anyway, as far as I've seen.
This deal is like really dependent on this. Well, the opting to implement this, correct?
You couldn't do that again, could you? Just missing.
Yeah, I think I caught enough of what Matt asked. Yeah, it is heavily reliant on centralized exchanges, but he's worked in a profit sharing mechanism that would essentially, I don't recall the percentage you offered or suggested in your proposal, Redline, but it essentially offers the centralized exchanges a a savory percentage of any fees we take from the divergence tax, to convince them to not only increase their profits, but help, the community, uh, once again, obtain PEG.
Yeah, I kind of left that blank because that's going to be something that we're going to have to discuss and negotiate with the CXs. But like, there's a potential to offer them many multiples of what they normally make. Like they only charge something like 0.2% of a transaction fee. The divergence tax goes from 0 to 100%. So like we can offer them many multiples of what they normally make.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah, I'm gonna read more into it. I haven't had the time to read the whole thing yet. I kind of peeped at it a little bit, but I was mainly wondering about the feedback from the exchanges. Yeah, man, see what they're talking about. And what one more question, and I'll step down. Is what thought have you had into, like, there's only what 5% that hold the majority of USTC. Like, what's your plans for them? Like, if they would just go to sell on the market and eventually, just drop the price out,
If who was to sell, sorry, I missed just the very start. Just who was to sell and drop on
Well,
and
I'm
dump
just
on.
saying, like, they have a few entities that hold the majority of the USTC that's out there on the market right now. Are you worried about those groups potentially selling on the market?
Well, so the thing about why this divergence protocol is the further, so if somebody dumped a massive amount of coins, like they could potentially dump it to a 50% DPEG. At a 50% DPEG, the protocol is just taking your tokens. It takes them for nothing essentially. So like we'd be able to acquire them tokens back. The community would. They'd be taxed all the way down. It would get quite aggressive for them. We'd end up taking their assets.
So, like, say if I'm holding USTC before this protocol is put into place and everybody's implementing it, I would basically be the value of what I'm holding would be diluted. I'm sorry, my mic keeps cutting off. So, like, if I'm holding USTC before this protocol is implemented, and say you get a bunch of centralized exchanges to implement this, would my shares in USTC be diluted in a sense?
No, there'll be no additional minting of USDC, so your share would be exactly the same. Even with the unidirectional swaps, it's not a swap where LUNC is minted at the moment. It'll be just like what would happen on the DEX. You'd literally be exchanging your LUNC tokens with the protocol for USDC. So you wouldn't be reducing your shares.
And you'd also just be selling at market value. So whatever exchange or decentralized exchange you choose to swap on, I mean, you just be getting the going rate plus, slippage.
Yeah. Now, if, say, for instance, we put the peg in place and you had bought before and you sell and the price is depegged, then you're going to get punished or penalised for doing that. But if the price is at peg, then you won't.
Okay,
What's
cool,
that?
man. I'll read up a little bit more on it, and I'll probably DM you here shortly. I haven't read the whole thing, so that was just a few questions I had, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for coming up.
All right, Matt. We appreciate you for your questions, good sir. So I saw another question come out of the audience in comments. So we'll get that asked for you, Redline. What kind of funding would we be talking about here? If you have anything to say on that.
Funding from who? Binance, is it, or who?
I'm going to assume he's talking about, and Redline may not actually be able to answer this because, he's presenting an idea, a possible path forward to the community. And as far as I'm aware, he has not asked for compensation for his intellectual property, and any funding required would just be for the L1 team to actually knock out those specific functions that need to be implemented on chain to get it going. Am I right in that, Redline?
Yeah, look, I haven't asked for anything. I'd only be able to contribute a bit part-time to this anyway if I was in the future. I haven't even looked at compensation. If it involves a good bit of work that I'm going to have my own job and I have to do a lot of this at the same time, I would like compensation, but I'd probably talk to TGF or somebody like that to get kind of a figure off them. I don't know what I charge, being honest.
Okay.
If at all. I don't know. I haven't really thought that far ahead yet, being honest with you. But like most of what I have, most of the work is going to be on the L1 team side. So yeah, I'm not going to require a lot of funding on my end, if anything. Do you know what I mean? So it'll only
Yeah.
be if it required a lot of my time or to interface with the L1 team with the maths end of it or the algorithm end of it. Maybe, yeah, I'd like something for my work. Do you know what I mean? But
No, of course. I don't think anyone would argue against, if this proposal is voted in through a text proposal and we begin work on it and you're having to work with the L1 team working through it, on a day-to-day, having meetings, and discussing it with them so they can get those functions knocked out correctly. I don't think anyone would turn their nose up at you being included in some form of L1 proposal, or hey, let's get Redline funded proposal for his intellectual property, and the day-to-day work he's putting in for the chain, and all of us here in this room right now. So we got someone else requesting to speak. MB7, please ask your question once you get connected. You're live, MB7, and your mic is muted.
Hi guys.
How's it going?
I'm fine, and you?
Lovely Tuesday evening.
When the repeg is happening, will the system burn Lung automatically till his max supply of 1 billion, as it was also before the crash implemented?
So what's going to happen is the lunk that's acquired by the protocol, that's going to come down to the community. I haven't said I'd burn it. I haven't said I'd do anything with it yet, because the community may want to decide to keep that for when we reach $1 to enable swaps without minting more lunk. That's something the community is going to have to decide on. But at the end of the day, all the protocol assets are controlled by governance. So if the community votes to burn it all, then they'll be able to do so. If they vote to keep it, they'll also be able to do that. It's going to be up to the community. It's not something I have decided. That'll be for the community to decide in the future.
No, I understand, but must the community decide it each time, you mean, for the burns? Or is the one time deciding?
Well, so like, what you must get is that burning supply and taking supply out so if you're burning lunk or taking it out of circulating supply, they both have the same price impacts, if that makes sense. what really affects the price is actually buying tokens. It's buybacks that will affect the price. So whether you decide to burn the lunk or whether you decide to keep it in the protocol but out of circulating supply, both will have the same effect on price.
What I think he was asking, Redline, was that it's not going to be a
Yeah,
one and done.
buying back and then burn it, you mean?
We're buying back, but it's going to be up to the community what you decide to do with it.
But how was it before the crash then?
Yeah, but it's not going to operate the same as before the crash. So, like I said, there won't be any minting. You'll only be swapping like you would with a DEX. You'll be exchanging your lunk with the protocol for USDC. It's not going to be working at the AMM level. This is something different. There's going to be no new minting. You're exchanging. Think of it as an exchange or working with a DEX rather than how it used to operate before. There'll be no new minting.
Now that must be for sure, no minting.
Well, there might be in the future down the line, but there's no need for minting. I mean, if you have a pool of assets there, why can't you swap it to protocol? Or why do you want minting then if that's the case? You don't actually need it.
Yeah, because we'll have, potentially millions of dollars, but also hundreds of millions of lunk stashed away, if not billions, that we can tap into that's essentially held in a protocol's banking contract. And there will never be a reason to mint lunk.
What I don't understand is, okay, Binance is also burning Lunk now, no?
Yes.
So why he is burning then? Then he can also do buyback and then don't burn it. Why he is burning then when it's not affecting the price, as you are saying?
Well, I mean, the thing about supply and value is a correlation, not causation. So just because supply goes down doesn't mean the value of a coin or token or any asset goes up. Okay, it's a correlation. A lower supply allows for the potential of an asset to accrue value to become more evident easily. So that's a correlation, not a causation, and you can't really explain the economics behind it because economics isn't a science. It's more of an assumption if you're Keynesian or Austrian, depending on what.
But anyhow, the supply of Lunk must be back to 1 billion because as the blockchain is written till 1 billion actually.
That's fine, but say if you've the supply held by a protocol or whether you've it burnt, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, but anyhow, it doesn't matter now or after 2 years or after 5 years. This supply must be back till 1 million maximum.
I mean,
as the blockchain or the codes in the beginning are written like that. You understand what I mean? So the max supply cannot stay 20 years like this. If you know what I mean.
The thing about the L1 is that that only operated and functioned and was a reality as long as the capital controls stayed into effect for the market maker between Lunk and UST. And since those capital controls are gone, that code it doesn't matter anymore. There's nothing for there to dictate a 1 billion supply or million, however much it was. There's nothing there to dictate that. And the Lunk was minted because their capital controls failed. So what they initially wrote in the code is completely irrelevant because the Lunk is in existence. And if we ever mint Lunk again or we never mint Lunk again, that's up to our decisions moving forward as a community. And whatever functions we code into the core protocol.
But you can, as a community, decide to burn off
but that's why it's crashed because of the minting.
Yeah, but there's going to be no new minting. That's what I'm saying. That's the whole point of this. There is no minting with this protocol. So it acquires through taxation, and then then it offers the swaps through that. So you've no minting for the swaps, basically.
I mean, supply reduction for Lunk is an entirely different conversation, anyways. The burn, whatever. That's not what we're focused on here tonight. We're focused on Redline's.
But it has something to do with the Repeg. And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it does, but like we reduced.
Reducing the supply has also something to do with the repack.
Yeah, that's correct, and we will be like, if you stake supply or you take it out of circulation, like that's like if you want to burn it, you can. Like the assets that are going to be taken under by the protocol, like if the community decides they want to burn all that supply off, they're more than welcome to. It can only be controlled via governance. Do you know what I'm saying? So if enough of the community decide we want to burn that, we don't want to keep it for the future, then that's what will happen. Like it will be voted on and it'll all be burnt.
Okay.
You know, so you go either way. Like, do you know what I mean? It's up to the community what to do with those assets. Like I didn't think it right that me as an individual should decide what should be done with all those assets. I think that's something that the community will have to vote on.
No, for sure. But I mean, you can put that also in the proposal. I mean, regarding this repack.
I had originally been honest, in one of my original versions was burning it. It's only now that I've looked and I said burning doesn't necessarily affect the price that much. So why are we doing it? Like if it's taken out of circulating supply and put under community control, that's a similar enough effect.
Exactly, and a good analogy or comparison with that would be how having 14-ish% of supply locked, almost 1 trillion lunk, is doing a lot more for price appreciation, for Luna Classic than what we've burned so far, because illiquid supply is essentially non-existent supply as long as it's illiquid.
And if it's in the protocol, it's even less so than staking, because people can unstake, do you know what I mean? And it's out within a month, whereas with the protocol, well, I suppose in time it'll be through governance votes, but I'd imagine the community want us both to just have funds just burnt off for a cent here, there, or wherever.
Exactly.
I mean, I think the community seems to have got a bit more sense in how they're going to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we decide to burn off 50%, and the other 50% that we've obtained through taxes, we use to do a lunk conference in New York City. Who knows?
Yeah, like the best thing is that people should come to a compromise. Like, so if some people want to burn it and some people think maybe we should keep it for the future, then the best thing to do is split that. Do you know what I mean? At the moment, we as a community seem to find no compromise with anybody for anything, and like that's something that we should do. If somebody puts a proposal for something you don't agree, maybe ask them to amend it to do a 50-50 split or something like that. Try work to find compromise in the community rather than just saying it's your way or the highway. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I left a lot of this stuff open, and it's going to end up being community voting on these parameters.
Yes. No, I completely agree. You got anything else, MB7?
No, that was it.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you coming up here and speaking with us. I'm going to go ahead and drop you down. I don't want to remove you like I did the last person. Remove from speakers. Okay. There we go. We're learning together every time. We're getting better at this. Does anyone else have any other questions, comments, concerns for Redline Drifter and his UST proposal? We would sure love to get your questions answered here so we can, go along with the proper dissemination of information instead of people making assumptions on Twitter. Nope, nothing. What about you, Kay? You got anything for us while you're listening in, all quiet in your corner?
Yeah, I'm just taking care of my kids while I'm doing this. Sorry, that's why I'm quiet.
Priorities.
No, I don't have any other questions.
Priorities, Kay. Okay. Well, if no one else has any other questions and they feel that we've given a good coverage of the proposal, then I guess we'll probably just go ahead and close it out for the evening. We've been at it for an hour and a half. And if there's, and if you feel like going over the information again, you have two different sources right now. You can, of course, re-listen to this because I did record it this time, or you can go head over to our newly erected YouTube channel and listen to that first episode we had on Saturday where we did, there was a couple different things we covered, but aren't necessarily important enough to go over again. So any closing words or thoughts, Redline?
No, that's it really. I was just mainly here to see if anyone had any questions about it. Thanks for having me up here as well to explain it. And I suppose if you agree with this proposal, it will be up to weekend, and you could go out and vote on it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to the community, myself and Kay, about it. I know everyone here really appreciates it. Once again, I really do hope that we were able to help you guys have a better understanding of it. And once again, thank you for joining us. So with that, we're going to close it out, guys, and we hope to see you Saturday with our next episode of Clan and Kay's Coffee Corner. Take it easy, guys.